May 21st through the 30th, join Dr. James Merritt on the trip of a lifetime. Experience the early New Testament as you follow in the footsteps of the Apostle Paul, all throughout Greece, the Greek islands, and Turkey. We'll also enjoy a 4-day cruise on the Mediterranean Sea. Join Dr. James Merritt in Greece, May 21st through the 30th, 2015. Reserve your spot today. Call 1-800-438-8281 or visit touchinglives.org for all the info.
Today on Touching Lives.
You really haven't lived until you met Jesus. You haven't lived until you've surrendered to Jesus. You haven't lived until you've trusted Jesus. You haven't lived until you've loved Jesus. You haven't lived until you've made Jesus your very life.
With hope and encouragement for life, this is Touching Lives with James Merritt.
You know, it's almost like it happened yesterday, and yet it happened almost 37 years ago. I put my hand on a door that would lead into a worship center where there was a crowd that was waiting to watch this young man marry this young lady. That's not a Sonny Bono impression up there, but I'd only known this young lady for about 6 months, and yet I knew that when I walked through that door of marriage, I was walking into a lifetime commitment. I knew that I was walking to a woman with whom I would spend the rest of my life with, for richer, for poor, sickness or in health, for better, for worse. And then not long after that, I remember another door that I opened. And it was the door to my first class at this institution called Southern Seminary. And I remember when I walked through that door, I wasn't walking into a room of information, I was walking into a room of transformation. Because that door represented the surrender of my life to the ministry of the gospel. And I knew when I walked into that room, I was going to be doing the rest of my life what they were going to be training me to do. And then, 10 years ago, I remember putting my hand on this door. And it was the door that led into this building, which at that time was a rundown, dilapidated, dirty, dust-filled warehouse. And yet when I stepped into that lobby, I knew this would be where I would spend the rest of my life. I knew this is where I would end my ministerial career. I knew this would be the last church that I would ever pastor. Now, as you can see, doors are very, very important. Because doors don't just determine destination, they determine destiny. What I want to do today is I want to talk to every one of us in this room about the single most important door I believe you'll ever walk through, and the most important door I've ever walked through. It's a door that has no hinges, it has no knobs, has no locks, it doesn't really swing out or in. This door is a person named Jesus. People are always trying to find basically 3 doors in their life. First of all, we're trying to find the door of security, whether it be physical security or emotional security or financial security. We want to know that we're secure. We want to know that we're safe. And then we're trying to find the door of significance. We want to know that our life matters. We want to know we're not just marking space and taking up space and marking time. We want to know that our life counts, that it's important that we're here. And then I said that people are looking for the door of satisfaction. They want peace of mind. They want to be happy. They want to be content. Years ago, UCLA psychologist James Coleman wrote these words, and I'm quoting, "As the modern day person struggles with the baffling question of his own existence, science falls short of providing full answers. It can tell how, but not why." And then he makes this observation. It's a little lengthy, but I want you to listen to what he said. "With the advent of the space age, man is confronted with a new perspective of time and space and the problem of finding the meaning of his existence in the universe in which the Earth and even the solar system may be no larger in relation to the whole than an atom is to the Earth. At the same time, materialistic values based on the belief that scientific progress will automatically lead to man's happiness and fulfillment just prove sadly disillusioning. So as a result, many people are groping about, bewildered and embittered, unable to find any enduring faith or to develop a satisfying philosophy of life. In other words, security, significance, and satisfaction. Despite their fine automobiles, well-stocked refrigerators, and other material possessions and comforts, the meaning of life seems to be evading them. In essence, they are suffering from existential anxiety, deep concern about finding values which enable them to live satisfying, fulfilling, meaningful, and significant lives. In other words, what this eminent psychologist of UCLA said is that people go through life trying to find the doors of security and significance and satisfaction, but they never do. And I just want you to be honest with yourself. I just want you to ask yourself some questions right now. Do you feel secure? I mean, do you really, do you feel secure in who you are? Do you feel secure in what you have? Do you feel secure in where you're going? Do you feel significant? I mean, do you think that what you get up every Monday morning and give your life to really matters? Really is important? Really is making a difference? Do you really believe that you have found your real purpose in life? Do you know why you're here? And then are you really content? Are you really satisfied? If you were to check out of this planet right now, would you leave with no regrets? Would you leave saying, I found peace of mind, I found contentment, I found satisfaction, I knew who I was, I knew where I was going, and I was who I should have been, and I got to where I needed to go? Is there that settled peace in your heart, whether you go to bed at night or you get up in the morning, that you're who you need to be, you're where you need to be, and you're doing what you need to be doing? And if you're one of the many people in this room who deep down is saying, no, I can't say that, I'm honest enough to say, I'm still looking for some doors. You've got to listen to what Jesus said today. If you brought a copy of God's Word, I want you to turn to the fourth gospel. There are four gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. They're all in the New Testament. But I want you to turn to John, the 10th chapter. And I want to read 4 words to you. They're going to kind of frame everything I'm going to say this morning. They're very simple. Jesus said in John chapter 10 and verse 9, I am the door. Now, that's kind of an odd statement, to be honest with you. I mean, can you imagine going up to someone and saying, hey, we've never met. I'm James Merritt. Who are you? I'm the door. Okay, wonderful. The door to what? I mean, what do you mean? I am the door. Well, it's what he said before and after that statement that ought to make every one of us in the room kind of sit up and pay attention and say, I need to hear what this guy's got to say. Here's what Jesus said in John 10, verse 7. So Jesus again said to them, truly, truly, I say to you, I am the door of the sheep. All who come before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them. I am the door. If anyone enters by me, he will be saved and will go in and out and find pasture. If you'd been alive 2,000 years ago, you would have totally understood the picture that Jesus was painting, but since we weren't there, let me kind of back up and explain it. Being a shepherd was a common vocation back in that day. As you well know, there were shepherds abiding in the field, keeping watch over their flock by night when they celebrated the first Christmas. There were a lot of shepherds, there were a lot of sheep because it was an agricultural economy. And whenever Jesus started talking about being the door of the sheep, everybody would have understood exactly what he meant, because back in that day, there were 2 kinds of sheepfolds. There was the sheepfold that would be very close to a village or to a town, and it was an enclosure for all of the sheep of all of the shepherds. So, for example, if there were a lot of shepherds bringing their sheep to market and they needed to keep their sheep overnight, they would bring it to this enclosure, they would put all their sheep together, they would pool their resources, and they would hire a guard to guard the sheep, and then the next day they would pick their sheep up to take the sheep to market. But you could only go in and get your sheep if he had your name and he recognized who you were. But then there was another kind of sheepfold that was out in the hills, and it was away from any village. And it was a very simple enclosure. If you go to Israel with me, you'll get to see one of these. It was kind of like this. There were 3 sides to the enclosure. It had rocks that were piled up about 1 foot high. So you had this side, this side, and this side. And then the way you got into the enclosure, there would be this opening about as wide as the front of this platform, about 5 or 6 feet wide. And that was the way that the sheep would go in and the sheep would go out. Now, what would happen would be the shepherd at night, he would lie down in front of the entrance to that sheepfold. So he became, in essence, the door of the sheep. Sheep could not go in and sheep could not go out unless the shepherd allowed it. Now, as the door, the shepherd gave sheep the same 3 things that every one of us are looking for. When those sheep would go into that sheepfold at night and they would lie down, they'd have security. They would know, as long as the shepherd's here, I'm safe. Don't have to worry about thieves stealing me or wolves eating me. The shepherd is going to take care of me. And then he gave the sheep significance. They knew that that shepherd cared for them. They knew they were important to that shepherd. They knew that that shepherd would lay down his life for them. And then he gave them significance. Satisfaction. They could lie down and sleep at night because they had all that they needed to survive. They had grass and they had water. So the sheep, they had security. They knew they were safe. They had significance. They knew they were important, and they had satisfaction. They had all that they needed to be happy. Now, one of the favorite ways that Jesus loved to teach people, he would take a common, ordinary, everyday object that you and I see every day, and he would compare himself to that object. He's so brilliant in the way he would teach. He would take an ordinary earthly object and somehow give it a heavenly meaning. There's only one of two things you can do with a door, right? You can open it from the outside to walk into a room, or you can open it from the inside and walk out of a room. So a door basically is always one of two things. It's either an exit or it is an entrance. And anytime you walk through a door, two things always happen. Always. Same two things. You automatically exit one place and you enter into another place. You're going to be leaving here in just a few minutes. You're going to walk through these doors right here. You'll be exiting the worship center and going into the lobby. You'll go through another set of doors. You'll be exiting the lobby and going outside. You'll get into another set of doors. You'll be exiting the outside, getting into your car. That's the way it is. Whenever you walk through a door, you exit one room and you enter into another one. And that's the key takeaway. This is what I want you to walk out the door with this morning. When Jesus said, I am the door, here's what he was telling all of us. Through Jesus, you exit a meaningless life and you enter a meaningful life. So there are three things I just want to share with you all out of Jesus. By the way, it's not that I'm brilliant. I'm really glad that Jesus is affirming what I've been telling you, because I want you to listen. This is what Jesus said himself. He said, if you will come to me, if you will walk through the door named Jesus, here's what you're going to find. Number one, through Jesus, you can walk through the door of security. Now, Jesus says, I am not a door. He says, I am the door. Now, why did he say that? Every day, 6.97 billion people on this planet choose to walk through doors. Many people yesterday walked through the door of marriage. Some people Monday are going to walk through the door of divorce. Some of you can't wait for the store to open this afternoon. You're going to walk through the door spending money. Some people walk through the doors of having children. Some people walk through the doors of jobs. They walk through the doors of schools. And one thing about doors that you learn pretty quickly as you get to be an adult is all doors carry risk. There's the risk of marrying the wrong person. There's the risk of taking the wrong job. There's the risk of going to the wrong school. And see, the real truth of the matter is, every one of you in this room right now, you are who you are and where you are for one reason only. It's all because of the doors that you chose to walk through in your life. Everything about you, everything that's true about you is a result of the doors that you chose to walk through. For example, if you're married, like me, if you're married, the person you're married to is a result of the decision to walk through that person's door rather than someone else's. That's why every person on this planet needs the door named Jesus, because he is the only one that can make it safe for you and me to go through the daily doors of life. Think about this. I just wonder if there's someone in here this morning and you're in an abusive relationship because you walked through the wrong door. I have people come into my office frequently, couples. One's a believer, one's not a believer. And they want to get married. And I'll say, I'm sorry, I can't do this. Well, why not? Well, because you're a believer and she's not a believer. Or you're a believer and he's not a believer. But we love each other. I'm sure you do, but I can't marry you. But I believe he'll be good to me. Maybe he will, but I can't marry you. But we really care. We've been dating for a long time. I know, but I can't marry you. Well, why not? Because God says you're walking through the wrong door. And I wish I had a nickel for every time, particularly women. Most of the time it's women. Women will come to me, and they've gone through this terrible marriage, they've gone through this terrible divorce, and here's their story. Well, I was a believer, and he wasn't, but I thought I could change him. I thought I could convert him. I thought I'd start getting him to go to church, and I thought he'd finally get right with God, but he didn't, and it just didn't work out. And when people walk through the wrong doors, I always find it's either because, A, they didn't know God, or B, they didn't trust God, or C, they didn't consult God, or they knew God and they consulted God, they even trusted God, but they just told to disobey God. And they walked into a relationship knowing it was wrong, and they walked through a door knowing they should not have walked through it. Now you may be sitting here this morning, you may be saying, man, that's me. That's exactly where I am. I have walked into a wrong door and I feel trapped. Let me tell you the good news. You ready for this? You're sitting here this morning and you're saying, man, my life's a wreck, my life's a mess because I walked through the wrong door. Here's the good news. It is never too late to exit the wrong door and walk through the right door. Never. Say, how do you know that? Because of what Jesus said in verse 9. He said, I am the door. If anyone, that means anyone, if anyone enter by me. Listen to what Jesus said. Jesus said, hey, you walk through the wrong door, I got news for you. Anytime, anywhere, any place, anyone wants to walk through me, the door's open. The door stays open. It's always open. The front porch light's always on. You can always walk through that door, and the minute you do, I will protect you and I'll provide for you. So when you walk through the door called Jesus, you walk through the door of security. Secondly, through Jesus, you walk through the door of significance. Because remember I told you when you walk through the door, two things always happen. You exit one room and you enter another one. Jesus is telling us, and by the way, it doesn't matter whether you're a new believer, you're thinking about becoming a believer, or you've been a long-time believer, it doesn't matter. Jesus says, when you come to me, you will exit a life of frustration and you will enter a life of fulfillment. You will exit a life of meaninglessness and you will enter a life of meaningfulness. That's what Jesus meant when he said this in verse 10. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. Now, what does he mean by thieves? What is the thieves he's talking about? In the context, what he means is wrong doors. Every door you walk through that's a wrong door, it is a thief. So you walk through the door of greed, or you walk through the door of lust, or you walk through the door of materialism, or you walk through the door of adultery, or you walk through the door of jealousy, or you walk through the door of bitterness, and you know it's the wrong door, but you walk through it anyway. Jesus said, it will suck the joy right out of your life. It will steal the joy right out of your life. It will take away your security. It will take away your significance. It will take away your satisfaction. It will rob you of everything you're looking for. But on the other hand, when you walk through the door named Jesus, he said, everything changes. Because listen to what he says in verse 10. I came, now watch this, that they might have life and have it abundantly. Do you notice the difference Jesus makes between an ordinary life and an abundant life? Well, one of my all-time favorite movies, if you ask me what's my top 5, Braveheart's one of my top 5 movies. How many of you have seen Braveheart? Man, what a great movie, right? That's one of the movies you can see every day. I love Braveheart. And in that movie, William Wallace, the hero, he utters one of the greatest lines, I think, in the history of cinema. You remember what the line is? William Wallace said, now listen to this, this is great. He said, every man dies, but not every man lives. Man, what a great statement. What a true statement. He's right. Oh, every man dies, but not every man lives. Listen, I want to tell you something. This may sound a little preachy to you, but I'm just telling you it's the passion of my heart. You really haven't lived until you met Jesus. You haven't lived until you've surrendered to Jesus. You haven't lived until you've trusted Jesus. You haven't lived until you've loved Jesus. You haven't lived until you've made Jesus your very life. I heard about a little boy whose dad had just gone off to war and he was concerned about his dad's safety, so he wrote his dad a letter that said, Dear Daddy, I love you and I hope you live all of your life. Now, that's what God wants for you. God gives you life so you'll live your life. He wants you to live life to the fullest. You were put here by God to live for God. And there is no significance, there is no importance to life apart from Jesus Christ. And it's only when you finally wake up and realize, I know why I'm here now. I'm here for His glory. I'm here for His honor. I'm here to find His purpose for my life and to fulfill it. I'm here to find His will for my life and do it. That's when you find a life of significance, and that's when you find a life of importance. And then here's the last thing. Through Jesus, you walk through the door of satisfaction. I'm not a shepherd, and at least in the physical sense. I am in the spiritual sense, but not in the physical sense. But I'll tell you something I learned as I've studied about shepherding and about sheep. It doesn't take a lot to satisfy sheep. I mean, it really doesn't. They're one of the simplest and easiest creatures to care for. All a sheep wants is two things. This is really kind of sweet to think about it. If you'll give them good grass to eat and good water to drink, they're happy. Well, wouldn't that be great if you could just satisfy your spouse that easily? If I could just give, hey, just have some grass and here's some water. I mean, it'd be wonderful, right? I mean, that's the way sheep are. Just give them some grass. I mean, sheep don't say, do you have any filet mignon? Or, can I have lobster tonight? No, just give me some grass. Give me some water. I'm good to go. And that's why these people have understood what Jesus meant when He said this in verse 9. They will go in and out and find pasture. Because every morning when the shepherd would awaken and he would get the sheep up, his job was to take the sheep out of the fold, lead them to green pastures, and they'd spend all day, they would feed and they would eat and they would rest. And then in the evening, the shepherd would get the sheep back up, he'd lead the flock back to the fold. And this is so cool. You know what that shepherd would do for the sheep? One by one, he would kneel down, one by one. And the first sheep would come, and he would check that sheep's coat. Are there any burrs? Are there any thistles? Are there any thorns? Are there any insects or bugs that could hurt him? And are there any cuts or any wounds? He would take oil and he would anoint that sheep with oil, and he would put medicine on that sheep, and he would make sure that that sheep was totally clean. And then he'd give that sheep a cool drink of water, and that sheep would walk into that sheepfold, and that sheep would simply lie down and go to sleep. Why? He was satisfied. A good shepherd knows exactly what the sheep needs. He gives the sheep exactly what they need, and when they need it, He gives it to them so they won't need anything else. Now, let me just kind of wrap this up and tell you this. I'll tell you what's been amazing is I've looked back on my life and I've seen all the right doors that I've walked through. And I've walked through some wrong doors too. We all have, okay? I've walked through my share of wrong doors. But it's amazing that when you find the right door and you walk through it, you never, ever want to go through any other door. When I opened this door and I married that woman, I knew I don't ever, ever want anybody else. I have found the love of my life. One of the biggest kicks I get out of life is being faithful to that woman right there. I just get a kick out of it because I don't want to be kicked out. So I get a kick out of being faithful to my wife. When I opened the door to that seminary classroom, I knew I had found my calling. I knew I had found why I was born. I knew I had found why God put me on this planet. And I knew, I don't care what it pays, I don't care what the benefits are, I don't want to do anything else than what I'm doing right now. And when I opened this door and I walked into that warehouse, I knew I'd never want to pastor any other church. I knew this would be where I would end my ministerial career. And when I opened this door as a 9-year-old boy, a door that's going to lead me right into eternity, when I opened the door to Jesus, I knew I had found my Lord and I had found my Savior. And I knew I don't ever want to worship anybody else. I don't want to serve anybody else. I don't want to obey anybody else. I just want to worship and love and serve Jesus because He is the door. And He's given me security, and He's given me significance, and He's given me satisfaction. And I'm here to tell you today, when Jesus said, I am the door, he was telling every one of us in this room, there's other doors you can take, and there's other doors a lot of people will take, but get this down and get it straight. I'm not a door, I am the door. And if you take any other door but my door, you're taking the wrong door. So if you are on the inside, or on the outside looking in, you've never walked through the door named Jesus, I just want to encourage you today to open that door and walk through it. If you're on the inside looking out, I want to encourage you today to walk out of here and go find somebody on the outside looking in and tell them there's a door they can walk through named Jesus. Tell them there's a door that's open all the time. It's never locked. It stays open. The front porch light is on. And it doesn't matter how many wrong doors you've walked through, you can always walk through the right door, because when you do, you exit a meaningless life and you enter a meaningful life.
Sometimes things can get so bad that we're afraid to do anything. We just want to sit right where we are and hope that somehow, some way, things will get better. If you need the courage to stand up and walk through the door of Jesus and into the life that you didn't even know was possible, call us today and let's pray together. 1-800-413-1131. Make a change today.
May 21st through the 30th, join Dr. James Merritt on the trip of a lifetime. Experience the early New Testament as you follow in the footsteps of the Apostle Paul, all throughout Greece, the Greek islands, and Turkey. We'll also enjoy a 4-day cruise on the Mediterranean Sea. Join Dr. James Merritt in Greece, May 21st through the 30th, 2015. Reserve your spot today. Call 1-800-438-8281 or visit touchinglives.org for all the info.
Life really is all about making sure we choose the right doors to walk through. Whether we realize it or not, we're all searching for security, significance, and satisfaction. But what doors are you walking through to find them? There's only one door that will satisfy all these desires, and that's the door of Jesus Christ. So if you're ready to stop wasting your life stepping through the wrong doors, and you want to be happy, peaceful, and content, learn how with The Door is Open. Order your copy today at touchinglives.org or call 800-413-1131. Each voice that's heard through today's media outlets is inviting people to step through a particular door. Some of those doors lead to sin and death, but some of those doors lead to Jesus and to life. Because of the faithful prayers and financial support of our partners, Touching Lives continues to be a voice of hope in a world where hope has never seemed so hard to find.